It is shoot the gap, man. Jorge, draft season is upon us. Draft season is maybe coming up for some. We've gotten past all the talk, all the top tens, the rosters, the position movement. Now we get to, put our money where our mouth is, and we get to talk about my guys. Yeah, so the my guy routine or shtick, I think, is pretty heavily played, of course, and I will follow suit because you know what? Honestly, we can talk as much as we want, but it's time to, as I said, put your money where your mouth is and actually say who you were supporting and who are those guys that you're in favor of. And so one of the things that I want to do is bring on some friends, make sure that we are, celebrating some of our early picks and see what we kind of think from there. But Jorge, I want to start off by saying, number one, great to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. For those who don't know, I've been out of the content creation scene for a little bit, nursing a little knee injury, but hope to be on the mend pretty soon.
Absolutely. And I want to say to all of our friends in the Gulf Coast area, Florida, Georgia, Gator, and family and friends, I hope everybody's okay. Hopefully quick recovery from everything going on. I'm sorry, my naivete as far as who's all affected and afflicted. Just know that you're in our thoughts and prayers, and we hope the best for you. But if you are capable of listening and you're part of that, jump over to the YouTube page. Comment to let us know how you're doing. I know that Drew's over there right now, and I have a special guest backstage who is going to jump on short, for a brief little spot and let us know who their guys are. First and foremost, one of, I think, the nicest people in the space. He was part of the Kings Classic as really just a support system for sure. That's my man, Mace. Mace, how you doing, buddy?
Yo, what's up, Nate? All right, thank you for letting me come on you guys' baby real quick and talk about a couple of my guys. Pretty exciting is the season to kind of plant your flag and then come back around and see. Got kids yelling in the background, so sorry in advance.
Yeah, it's okay. We will circle back to this, of course, and hold you responsible for any pick, so you know.
No, as it should be, though. But it's all in good fun. So can I just go ahead and get it kicked off?
Yeah, please, absolutely.
Okay, for sure. A guy that's coming off injury, I was kind of high on him earlier, maybe not so much, kind of coming back around. Rashawn Gary, if he actually gets to start earlier in the season, the dude's a pressure monster. I can't tell you the exact stats that he was on pace for last year, but they were pretty darn good. So with the addition of Van Ness and some other guys they have there, Twitter, the giant snake that they have at linebacker. So everything could be going good there for him. Also like a deep super sleeper, Arden Key for the Titans. I like him coming off the outside, finally getting a chance. No one really on the outside there that can stay healthy and consistent. So why not just throw a dart at the end of a best ball and see what happens? Azeez Al-Shaair going to keep it in Tennessee. He was great for San Francisco, so kind of bumping the horn there because I do love the San Francisco 49ers and the linebackers that they've had there for a while now. He filled in quite well, even like 48% of snaps in 2022, partially of the time, but he's still able to get 10 tackles, and a lot of them solo. He's got a nose for the ball. And then my last one's Cameron Curl. He hasn't eclipsed 100 tackles yet in a season, but he also hasn't played full season. He is capable of getting after the ball, though interceptions are kind of, a fatality in fantasy football. Either you get them or you don't, you know what I'm saying? So passes defender there, but I'm really looking to see him in the box. Not really sure what's going on with the linebackers there. One of them I think has some issues with the law, and then the other one is Cody Barton. So
wherever Mike Woller's at, he is now cussing you out under his breath.
You're hitting some sore spots over there, Mace. You're hitting some sore spots. Being a Commanders fan, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Mace, thank you for jumping on. Of those, obviously, the one that I found myself taking the most of is Rashawn Gary. Defensive line, he's at that DL 31, I believe, is where he's finally up to. If you drafted 2 months ago, you were getting him in. He was undrafted, People forgot about him. So don't forget about Rashawn Gary. We won't forget about you, Mace, and we will definitely keep talking. Go ahead.
Mace, real quickly, you want to shout out where they can find your work?
Yeah, I am the IDP content creator at Fantasy Six Pack. Rank on the ECR. Find some of my stuff on Fantasy Pros as well. I have a Thursday show with the Sports Affiliation. Hall of Fame writer Greg Kellogg and I host a show Thursday. So come check us out, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Jorge and Nate, thank you guys so much for this little spot of time. Appreciate it. Much love and respect, guys.
Absolutely. I'll see you Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll see you there. All right, later, guys.
See you, man.
Well, we got two guests in the background that I don't know. They might have some clout in the IDP space. I think you may have heard of them before.
I think so. I think one is the number one in my heart, and the other one is number one in the Fantasy Pros ECR. Leo and Gary. And Leo, that's not a knock. You know what? After I said it, I went, man, that was a kind of a jerk thing to say. It's like, shit, I need to work on my introductions there. How about this? How about two of, as Jorge, you were saying, two of the best in the business when it comes to IDP. Obviously, Gary's at every affiliation possible, and Leo's at FTN doing their IDP rankings. Leo, by the way, I saw that if you Google how to win at fantasy football, if I'm not mistaken, your SEO came up as one of the first ones to pop up.
Well, I made that up myself. It was just
damn it! I really like that. Damn.
Googling now.
It was more of a joke. I saw that Sleeper put that out there, and I kind of just made it up myself. But this is a joke. But yeah, it does help you win. That's for sure.
That's wonderful. That's great. Gary, how are you, buddy?
Oh, doing all right.
It's just a little busy time, I'm sure.
So I will say this: when I just Googled that, how to win at IDP fantasy football, Gary, your complete guide to dominating IDP over football guys. That was the first one that pops up. Shocking that happened, right?
Right.
I love that series that you guys put out this year. Walking through all the different steps, helping you win leagues. You guys had a great series. I enjoyed reading that, Gary.
It was a lot of fun to write with John Norton.
If you type in how to lose at IDP fantasy football, Sports Illustrated is number one. So I don't know anybody for Sports Illustrated that does it.
Sorry, Michael Fabiano. We weren't talking about you. We were talking about IDP fantasy.
That's Google. I didn't do it. I don't control Google. I'm just Google.
Shots fired.
Gary, if I had to Google, Gary's my guy for IDP 2023, who would be atop that Google search?
You guys know I love Matt Judon with his 60 tackles and his double-digit sacks and his great pass rush numbers and his consistency the last 2 years. And the aforementioned John Norton sniped me in the Buckus draft, and I still forgot about it. We go one more edge before I let Leo throw one in. Darius Smith in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he's going in a position of value. 3 out of the last 4 years, he's put up at least, 44 tackles and double-digit sacks. And he's playing opposite Myles Garrett. So I think he was 11th. I think Smith was 11th in pass rush win rate. You can say it, Gary. There you go. I think he was 11th in that category last year. And that was with, big Daniel Hunter is no schmuck, but he's not Myles Garrett. So Smith's going to see single teams all day long. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to eat. I love that. I love what, as a Browns fan, I love what that team has done to that defensive line in the offseason.
Likewise. Leo, how about on your Google search for your my guys? Who's coming up early for you?
Well, I mean, this year's a little bit different. I'm in more leagues this year, and so my guys turned into more of who am I routinely getting in a draft? And before I would just come up with guys that I like based off ADP, but this is I'm probably in 20 drafts this year. Last year maybe 7, and so this year it's really who am I continuing getting? And this year. One of the first guys is somebody Gary just talked about, but that's Daniil Hunter. I got him in the Kings Classic with, all these great IDP experts. I got him at DN 17. I have him in my top 10 defensive linemen. I think, he's been in the top 5 in scoring average the last several years at defensive line. I think he's going to continue to eat. Even I know they have a new defensive coordinator, but Daniil Hunter, somebody that I've been routinely getting, and that I'm putting my stake in there.
Now, how much time are you guys working with? I obviously don't want to keep you too long. If you want to get in and get out real quick and you have another one, feel free. If you want to stick around and you have a list of others, you're mi casa, su casa.
I got a few more, but
yeah.
Go ahead, Gary. I got a couple more, but go ahead.
Well, Mace already mentioned Azeez Al-Shaair, who's another guy that I've loved him since the moment he signed in Tennessee. I was like, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A couple veteran guys who, honestly, I don't think we expected to be necessarily IDP relevant a month, 6 weeks ago. You look at Denzel Perriman in Houston and what he accomplished 2 years ago with the Raiders. Looks like he's going to be making the defensive play calls for the Texans, and is a guy who's his ADP has risen recently as the news has come. People know that now that he's going to be a 3-down guy, but before he cost next to nothing. And one that just blows my mind, I can't believe we're talking about Zach Cunningham again.
I knew it.
But here we are. It looks like he's going to be a 3-down guy for the Eagles. I mean, I know everybody loves Nakobe Dean, and I love the talent. He was my top off-ball linebacker prospect in his draft class, but he's played, 20 defensive snaps total in his career? Are we sure that he's the guy for the Eagles? And if he's not, I mean, even if he is, the Eagles play a lot of 2 linebacker sets anyway. They produced a couple IDP-relevant linebackers last year in Edwards and Kaiser White, so I think Cunningham will be fine even if Dean is the guy. But if Dean isn't, we've seen Cunningham put up some ridiculous tackle numbers in the past. I think that year in Houston that he led the league in tackles, I think he had 165 total tackles and 106 solos. And he's a guy that still a lot of people are sleeping on that you can get late, or if you've already drafted, run to the waiver wire and scoop him up. I had the NBC Sports draft that we did together, Nate. I was able, because I drafted Nicholas Morrow because I'm stupid.
No, you're not stupid.
Yeah, it seemed like a good idea. The moral of my life, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I was able to go back in and grab Perriman off the waiver wire. So now I feel like, okay, it's all good. So those are a couple guys that are going to be available either later in drafts, or people are just completely asleep on them, who apparently they're like the anti-Blake Martinez. Whereas Martinez was supposed to be IDP relevant and then just vanished a week before the season to go sell Pokemon cards.
Fake Pokemon.
These guys.
Yeah, fake Pokemon cards.
These guys were completely off the IDP radar, and now all of a sudden we're looking at them that they could be LB2s. So
it's crazy. It really is. Now I've heard 2 of the 3. Now, Jorge, I know who some of your my guys are,
right?
And I've heard a few of them mentioned already.
Yeah.
So let's start off. That's okay though. Back up what Gary said about Matthew Judon. What is it? Anything in addition to what he mentioned that really you've been a fan since I've known you? So
I love Matt Judon. I like everything he does. So again, we're talking IDP. So with that comes the variability when it comes to IDP scoring and IDP metrics that people count. But let's since we have Leo on the show, and since you, myself, and Leo, we do the IDP consensus competition during the year for Fantasy Pros. Let's talk about that. Obviously, in terms of talking about Matt Judon, quarterback hits is not a metric that is counted for that competition. However, we were talking about this during our top 12 defensive line show heading into 2023, and I brought up Matt Judon. And one of the really cool stats that I found is that when a player has close to 20 or above quarterback hits, that's indicative of getting close to double-digit sack totals. And Matt Judon has just been on a tear. His career, when it was back in Baltimore, he only has one season in 2020 where he didn't get above 10. You go back to 2018, 10.5, 18, 9.5, 14, 14. I mean, the guy is just a beast. He gets to, even the tackle numbers are respectable, which gives him a decent floor. And you throw on top of that the quarterback hits. Yeah, if you're in your league that has quarterback hits as a metrics, he's going off for you. He's a top 10 maybe top 7 defensive lineman / edge rusher. So huge fan of Matt Judon. Love the red sleeves too. I wonder if he's going to change it up this year. Probably not, but it looks too good. The red sleeves look too good. You're right.
And it's easy for me. I know when he's on the field. Well, I know when he's on the field. He's always on the field, but I know where he's at on the field. I don't have to try to look for silly numbers. Leo is another one of your guys.
Yeah, so a couple more guys that I've been drafting. I mentioned Danielle Hunter, Minnesota. So I got 2 more guys with Minnesota connections.
Oh,
Harrison Smith. A couple. Another older guy. I think he's 33 or 34 right now. But he had a little. He's historically been one of the top safeties. With playing in the box, getting a lot of tackles. Last year, came back a little bit back down to earth. I don't know that he was given 100% effort. I think there was some snap count issues at the end of the year where they weren't really kind of feeling the love both ways. But now you bring in Brian Flores. He likes to blitz guys from all different positions. I really think there's some opportunity there for him to get a few extra blitzes. I think he'll be rejuvenated as far as him putting in 100% effort and with a new defensive coordinator. And so I really like him. I think I kind of have him around at DB 12. I got him in the Kings Classic at like DB 17. Mm-hmm. I think he's somebody that I think I can consistently just put out there and know that he's going to get me tackles each week. And another Minnesota connection guy, he played for Minnesota last year, was Eric Kendricks. He now goes over to the Chargers. We saw that Drew Tranquil, he scored a lot of points last year, when he was healthy, and he put up top 15 numbers. There's no reason Kendricks can't do that now that he doesn't have Jordan Hicks stealing tackles from him each week. I think he'll be the number one linebacker, and they don't really use a second linebacker as frequently as Minnesota used recently. So I think there's an opportunity for Kendricks to, another older guy that, I think you can just put him in there and he's going to score for you each week. I mean, he might not get the flashy plays, but he'll get you those tackles and a tackle heavy scoring like we have in the Fantasy Pros ECR.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And that's, the Minnesota connection that was talked about earlier with Mace. He brought up Zadarius Smith, who is, I would say, one of my guys when possible. Obviously, you can't always just reach too heavy for a person who's that DL 18 where he's currently going. I'm sorry, Gary, you said Zadarius Smith. And I'm right there in agreement with you because you touched on it. Number one, with that Jim Schwartz, that wide 9, that to me screams just stunts left and right. You're going to have Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Now with Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle to create, that pressure, something tells me that we're going to see a continuation of what Zadarius Smith has done that, one of only 10 players since 2015 has done is have 3+ seasons of 10+ sacks and 20 or more quarterback hits. You talked about the tackles already in consecutive or at least 3 seasons in a row. Now you throw all 3 of those metrics in it. And if you're in a league that has quarterback hits, Zadarius Smith, I think, should be at the back end of that, that DL1 conversation, especially now that true position designation really helps put him into an area where he's going to excel more so than being scattered amongst some of the linebackers.
Well, that's why I love guys like Judon and Smith, is that I can hit the linebacker position early. Mm-hmm. I can circle back and get those guys usually after 12, 13, 14 defensive linemen have come off the board and potentially still get DL1 upside. I can't believe you got Danielle Hunter as defensive end 17 at King Classic.
Yeah.
What was I, sleeping or drinking or what?
I remember that pick because I was very mad. There was two different defensive linemen that went that I just, that morning I got to admit it was Jorge. I'm glad you weren't there to watch me struggle. It was struggle. And so by the time I finally got settled in, I wanted to have it all positioned ready, by my rankings, and Danielle Hunter's one. I'll talk about the other here shortly, but Leo, you said you got your Minnesota. Jorge, who's one of your guys that we haven't talked about yet?
So this is going to be a deep dive, real deep dive, and it's about Gary. And of course, it's Gary's favorite position when we talk about IDP, defensive back here. I'm gonna say he's my guy because I love the opportunity. I loved what he did down the stretch last season. He's switching to a new position this offseason, heading into this season. I'm going to say that Julian Blackmon is one of my guys for the Indianapolis Colts, switching from free to strong. All the reports out of training camp have been very positive, whether it's EJ Speed getting love, whether it's Julian Blackmon getting love. Just a lot of flying to the ball narrative, a lot of flying to the ball talk. Signed a new contract this past summer. I think it was like an extension or whatnot. Just very positive reports, and we look at his preseason play. He's played a majority of his snaps in the box, so there's none of this worrying about him going into slot coverage or him playing free at all. He is, we looked at his run defender grade, courtesy of PFF, down the stretch last season, all top marks there. So he has the opportunity. He's somebody that you definitely probably could even pick up off the waiver wire. I know, Nate, in an IDP Dynasty League you were in, I literally just picked him up this afternoon because I just realized, oh my God, is Julian Blackmon still available? Oh my, he is. We'll drop in Marcus Williams. Obviously why I had Marcus Williams on my roster, taking up a roster spot, I have no idea. But that's not the point. The point is that Julian Blackmon is now on the roster. And if there's somebody like you said with true position with Gary, thank you very much for making that a thing. Finally at MFL. You want the tackle upside if you're going to be chasing defensive backs, and I think just the opportunity there with Indianapolis. I'm not expecting the Colts to be setting the world afire in terms of being one of the better teams in the NFL. So more often than not, you're going to get more snaps headed his way, and you love the run stopping grade. So Julian Blackmon, defensive back there.
It's still always Nick Cross on my heart, but it is what it is. And we have a question, and why I still have you three all here. Let's collectively get our heads together, and he needs to keep 5 defensive linemen. I don't know if this is a 1 year only or a multi-year, because I think that could affect some of the choices. But you have Cameron Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Hassan Reddick, Rashawn Gary. I want to say Josh Allen from the real Josh Allen, Harold Landry, and Nolan Smith. So, Gary, who's one of those that you would keep for sure?
Oh, well, there's 5 I would keep for sure, but Highsmith's an easy keep.
Okay. Yep. Well, go ahead. It's Dynasty too, is what JJ
Right.
mentions. So,
honestly, I'm dumping the old man. Sorry, Cameron Hayward. No disrespect, been a great player for a long time, but you got to go because you're too old. And I'm gonna dump the rookie because it's started kid. We just haven't seen you prove it yet. So I'd be keeping the Highsmith, Reddick, Gary, Josh Allen, and Harold Landry, the middle 5.
that would be mine as well. Leo?
Well, do we know if it's Josh Allen or Jonathan Allen? Because
Touche. That does make a difference.
But yeah, Hayward, I mean, he's going to do well for you 1 year, but yeah, I'm going to kind of let him go. But I'm going to keep Nolan Smith. I mean, we haven't seen him yet, but I want to invest in. I'm going to keep a couple older guys. I want a younger guy on here. So, Josh Allen. So I'm probably keeping him. So I might get rid of Hayward and probably Landry. It's a lot of uncertainty there with Landry. I mean, I think he's going to come back, but you never know with these guys coming back off injury how much they're going to return, back to their prime.
It's true. It's true. Jorge, any difference from? Let me put it this way: is Cameron Hayward staying on your team?
So that's the part that I keep going back and forth for. I understand we're talking Dynasty, and obviously, you want to be targeting the younger players and keep that factory going as far as keeping these players on your roster who have
longevity,
long-term potential. But there is something to be said for having some stability, especially at the defensive line position, which kind of could be hard to get. So I think I would keep Hayward. Believe it or not, I would actually get rid of Highsmith. Nate, you and I have had conversations about this, and what is Alex Highsmith? We know who he is, but what is he? Is he a product of TJ Watt being on the other side, or is he somebody that could provide potential if TJ Watt wasn't there and bring something to the table? Consistently year after year, he's gotten better year after year. He's been in Pittsburgh. I'm not saying that there hasn't been progression there, but I just concerned whether or not his ceiling is high enough to warrant, or his floor is high enough to warrant, that long-term investment on your dynasty roster.
Yeah, Highsmith is challenging to some because that hyper efficiency that people don't want to believe in year in, year out, but some guys just get it done. Some guys are the opposite. And
he made a believer out of me playing when Watt was out. That Highsmith kept putting up numbers. That was enough for me. That showed me that he wasn't necessarily a product of, okay, TJ Watt's over here, so we have to throw 3 guys at him. So we're going to just try to chip Highsmith with a running back and pray that it works.
Yeah. And on the opposite end, as we're talking about Alex Highsmith, I think that it's fair to include one of my guys this year who is I think on the other end of that spectrum, but will have production, is Jalen Phillips. And, here's last year, his defensive line 22 in Fantasy Pro scoring. He was the defensive line. He was a DL 30, 32 on a per game basis. And this year so far, he's a DL 24 on consensus. I will say right now, I have him as my defensive lineman number 6 overall. And that's probably higher than most. Maybe it might be near the top as far as overall expectations. But, he was 7th in the NFL last year with 70 pressures. I think the addition of Vic Fangio is going to make, for me, I think it's going to make leaps and bounds of effort. The concern that I have is that obviously you can never translate sacks from pressures, but there's historical evidence that increased in pressures generally will increase in sacks. And so I think that you take back the pass coverage snaps that he was asked to play. I mean, he had 98 pass coverage snaps last year, which was by far the most of any outside linebacker who had more than 50 pressures. So you reduce that because Vic Fangio, at least from my experience from seeing his numbers with Chicago and San Francisco, didn't ask Khalil Mack to drop back into coverage. And maybe that's because Jalen Phillips is better, but I don't think so. And if you look last year, I mean, hell, he had 2 games where he didn't record a pressure. One of those was the season opener against New England. The other one was that blowout loss to the Jets, which was just weird. But I think Jalen Phillips has the at the end of the season, if someone's sitting at 18 sacks, all of a sudden it wouldn't shock me in the least to see him double his production from last year.
Let me ask you a question real quick, since we have all 4 of us on the show. And let's talk about it from a redraft first and then dynasty second. If you had to go with the high tackle floor of Christian Wilkins or the high pressure rate of Jalen Phillips for redraft this year, who would you take? Let's start with Leo. Let's start with you.
I'm taking the upside with Phillips. I mean, I like being able to, get some of those splash plays. Wilkins, had those big numbers last year. That doesn't mean necessarily it's going to translate with Fangio this year. So I think he's going to come down a little bit. And I think Phillips is going to come up a little bit the other way. So I'm going to roll the dice with Phillips. I mean, I don't have them that much farther apart. I do have Jalen Phillips at D-line 15 this year. Maybe not as aggressive as Nate here, but definitely higher than the consensus.
And I'm assuming that's the same take for Dynasty as well, Phillips over Wilkins?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Same thing.
Gary, what about you?
I agree. I'd go with the upside of Phillips over. Now, if we were talking about a defensive tackle required league, then obviously it's a different story with Wilkins. What surprises me, Bradley Chubb is dead. I mean, no one in the IDP community, he is evaporated. He is persona non grata. And I'm not going to lie, I have thrown a couple super late darts at Bradley Chubb in a couple of drafts just because, it's the 32nd round and I'm looking for a 4th guy who probably won't start a game for me anyway, hopefully, unless a bunch of guys get hurt. And, Chubb had, 12 and a half sacks as a rookie. Again, maybe the Fangio effect will get – was Fangio his defensive coordinator? Was Fangio the defensive coordinator in Denver when Chubb was a rookie?
Didn't they get – I think I got – correct me if I'm – no. Yeah, I think so. I think he was.
Was 18? Is that right?
The only year he was good with Von Miller.
2018.
Yeah, that was that was Fangio's year there. So
I'm just saying Bradley Chubb is free in drafts, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, right now, currently the defensive line 41, and which is free, right there. Mm-hmm. So The JJ has one more question here. Is how would you guys rank his linebackers in order? CJ Mosley, Eric Kendricks, Divine Diablo, Troy Anderson, and Devondre Campbell. Anybody want to take a quick shot at who they have as their one? I'm going to say this is redraft, or do you think this is well, no, it's a dynasty question last time, so I'm going to assume it's dynasty.
Wow. I'd go Mosley, Campbell, Anderson, Diablo, Kendricks.
Go ahead, Leo. I know you like Kendricks.
Yeah, I've been so in redraft mode as the last few months that it's hard for me to kind of go back into. You got Troy Anderson, in his second year breakout. Some of these guys are getting older, but I'm, in a redraft, I'm looking at Mosley and Kendricks and Campbell as the top three. But then you go into Dynasty, and Mosley's getting older. Kendricks, it's only got a little bit longer. But I'm probably going Campbell, Anderson. I don't know what Diablo is going to do, but then Kendricks and Mosley. I think there's some rumors, Spillane may be taking over, and Diablo hasn't necessarily shown, he's kind of plays that weak side position. Can he hold up, for a whole season? So I don't know. What do you got, Gary?
You know what? I think I go Mosley, Campbell, Kendricks, Diablo, and let's go Mosley, Campbell, Kendricks, Anderson, Diablo. I live in the now, man.
Yep.
I don't worry. I do not worry that far down the road in Dynasty when it comes to IDPs, because there's just so much that changes from year to year that I'm not going to give up on a guy who can be as productive as a CJ Mosley or an Eric Kendricks for me in 2023 just because of what I might get out of Anderson in 2025. Yes, maybe Anderson will blow up this year, and in 2 years he'll be a top 10 linebacker. He could also struggle this year, and in 2 years, he will have been replaced by some other guy that we'll be talking about in Dynasty leagues.
Yeah, and that's the case. That's the hardest thing to project in Dynasty from an IDP standpoint. Feels like there's that the handful of people that have the longevity, and then it's the mix and match, and who's the hot hand now. That's a little scary going forward. But I do like Diablo, and I'll be interested to see how he plays. With Spillane having the green dot from what they've all said. Some players play better when they don't have the responsibilities of play calling, others don't, and the only way to figure that out is to actually play the games, which, by the way, we have in 6 days from now. So
that's awesome.
Gary, Leo, any final guys you want to throw out for us?
Well, one guy I just picked up yesterday that's real deep is Josh Woods. You probably saw him come through in the Kings Classic. I think there's going to be somebody in Arizona. I know he's still battling Chris Barnes as a second linebacker, but there's going to be somebody there that's going to get a decent amount of snaps and a decent amount of tackles. So he's somebody I just kind of pick up, see what happens in week one, and if he doesn't do anything, you drop him and pick somebody up. You're going to want to get somebody else through waivers, typically after week one. You see a lot of activity after week one. So I picked him up, see what happens, see who does something. If he does something, he takes off, then I've got a decent linebacker that's, being drafted probably in the 60s right now. So he's deeper, deeper roster, somebody, if you've got 53-man rosters, maybe somebody you get, but just somebody to keep an eye on.
Nice. And before you go, tell everybody what you got working on and where they can find more of your number one ranked work at.
Yeah, so you can find my stuff this year at FTN and at rpofootball.com. You can find me on Twitter at MasterIDP. You can also find my rankings over with you guys at Fantasy Pros. We're starting to get ready for week one already. I can't believe, we've been working so hard on redraft and dynasty, and now it's time to jump into week one. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you stopping in and giving everybody a little piece of the magic that you call, your IDP rankings.
Thanks, Leo.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Gary, did you have anybody else that you wanted to have? People says now they can't snipe you any longer if in drafts. I don't believe now you can actually give away all the secrets.
Well, as you may have heard, I like to wait to draft defensive backs, especially when some jackass drafts like Kevin Byard.
Yeah.
I love that story.
I'm not bitter. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm not saying that Nate's name is on a list of people that I shall have vengeance upon one of these days.
I'm watching my shoes.
It's yeah. What size shoe do you wear, Nate?
8.5. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go deep dart throw again. This is a guy no one was talking about probably 3 weeks ago. Tony Adams with the New York Jets. I mean, it was going to be Chuck Clark who was going to be the starter at safety there. Then he tore his ACL. Like the next day, they signed Adrian Amos. Everyone just assumes, well, it's going to be Amos. I mean, Amos has started, I think he's got 122 career starts between Chicago and Green Bay. May have made a Pro Bowl at one point along the way. Not a great safety, but a capable veteran starting safety. So everyone just assumed it's going to be Amos. If it wasn't going to be Amos, some people were like, it's Ashton Davis. It's his turn. It's time for him to ascend.
Right.
No, it's Tony Adams, a second-year undrafted free agent out of Illinois. And the coaching staff apparently loves him because they gave him the starting rod. You can get him for nothing, and that's the beauty of it. If 2 weeks into the season he has 6 tackles total, throw him to the waiver wire and get another one. But, last year when the season started, ain't none of us mentioned Jonathan Owens' name not one time. No. There were some people talking up your Talanoa Hufanga a little. But like guy like Owens, nobody. 3 weeks into the year, we're all looking at his tackle numbers like, wait, what? Who? Looking him up like, it's Simone Biles' boyfriend.
Right, exactly.
And I think Adams can be that kind of guy this year. I really do. I think he's a stunner. So he's a guy, if you've already drafted and you're not happy with your defensive backs, he's probably sitting on your waiver wire. If you haven't drafted and you could be in a deep league, he's going to be there late. I mean, if you're in a shallower IDP league, you don't even have to draft him. Just keep him in the back of your mind that he's going to be out there on the waiver wire. But I love my dart throw defensive backs. And I think Peter Schrager of Good Morning Football called one of his top 10 breakout players of the year. So, I'm on the Tony Adams bandwagon now.
Nice. And Tony Adams grew up about 30 minutes from here. He went to St. Louis University High School, which is right down the road, and then went to Illinois, where I'm a fan. And that is DBU is what they soon would definitely, I guess, as far as what Miami used to be, tight end used to be. Still could be, I guess, but not as much. Illinois is now DBU. So, question: do you guys have IDP rankings? What do you know, JJ? I think we all do. Gary, why don't you tell JJ first where your IDP rankings can be found, or where they can't be found?
You can find my Redraft and Dynasty IDP rankings at Football Guys.
And that is honest. I'm not going to knock Jorge and I's rankings, but let's be honest. Check out Gary's first, and then if you want are they free? Are they behind? You have to be a subscriber.
They're behind a paywall.
Okay, so that if you want some free rankings, and that is not a knock against anything that you guys do at Football Guys, Joe and company. Oh, no. We love every one of y'all. But fantasyframes.com, JJ, you can find all of our rankings, Redraft, Dynasty, best ball. Hell, there's offense and IDP everywhere. And then Jorge and I are part of the Fantasy Pros ECR competition. So you can always go to Fantasy Pros. You can select your own specific experts if you want. Cycle down, find our names, and just look at our rankings collectively compared to the others.
And we'll definitely have those. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
I'm not going to lie. I look at the ECR from time to time, like when I'm doing my own rankings, just to see. Because, sometimes I'll be a lot higher on a guy than the ECR or a lot lower on the ECR. And it gives me pause for a second. I have to ask myself, okay, why am I higher on that guy? And it might just be that I am, and I think that all the people in the ECR are full of crap.
Correct.
But then there are times when I'm like, maybe I'm overranking this guy a little bit. So I'll drop him a couple spots. It's a great resource. And again, I'm all for, I used to do free IDP rankings at Fantasy Sharks for a long time, but they actually don't do rankings at the site anymore. All their stuff is computer generated projections. So sadly, my rankings are behind a paywall now. Although a Football Guys membership is a great value, filled with valuable information.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
And not to mention, going back to our rankings, over at Fantasy and Frames. We know this is a big draft weekend. The last hurrah as we get close to Thursday. So we know how important rankings and player profiles and all sorts of information is important to you, not just in IDP, but for offense as well. So whether it's going over to our YouTube channel, looking at our information there, going to our website, checking out our rankings, which will be finalized at midnight tonight, so you'll be able to take a look at everybody's rankings here at Fantasy and Frames. We'll get you ready for your drafts this weekend.
Nice. And Gary, if you have anybody else, of course, you're more than welcome to stick around and keep chatting, but I know you're pretty busy, so I don't want to monopolize your whole time.
I should probably walk my dog before he pees all over the floor upstairs and I get in trouble with management. So
that is a smart move. Well, before you walk the dog, you can guide these. Yeah, I don't know. We know where you're at from football, guys. Or anything working on that you want people to check out?
I just did my last preseason article, which was actually an offense article for Fantasy Sharks. It should be popping, I hope, tomorrow. Just making the case for Nick Chubb as the number one running back in 2023.
Yes.
So, the easiest place to find me is just go to IDP Sharks on Twitter, and I could try to break down what I'll be doing in season every week, but I get confused. There's 3 or 4 columns on Monday, a couple on Tuesday, 2 or 3 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday. And then I think Friday, I only have to write 1. So my week starts, it's like a roller coaster, essentially. I'm at the top of the hill. This is Sunday. Then Monday, I start climbing. About Wednesday evening, I kind of crest the hill. And by Friday, I coast into Saturday. Saturday, I get to take a breath, maybe drink a beer or 2, allegedly. And then Sunday, I'm right back at it. As I'm watching the games, I'm doing power rankings for the following week of Bleacher Report. So, and IDP in season, my IDP rankings are at NBC Sports Edge. In the off season, they're at Football Guys. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, nothing.
No, at all.
How you get 26 hours in a 24-hour day is beyond me. But please let me know how you have that. Whatever that time thing is that they had in Harry Potter. That's what you have found.
And Monday is my worst day of the year. Last year on Monday, I worked from about 9 in the morning till probably about 5 o'clock Tuesday morning.
Oh.
Seriously. So I decided this year, in my infinite wisdom, to add a column that day because I didn't have enough to do. I'm just going to have to do more on Sunday because there was some stuff from Sunday that would bleed over into Monday last year. That cannot happen this year. Sunday has to be done on Sunday because Monday is not a fun day. And there's going to be an awful lot of, because I'm doing an article for The Athletic. The Athletic asked me to do a weekly column. So what am I going to say? No. About, and it's offense. It's players to drop.
Oh.
And I'm kind of looking forward to it because it's going to give me a chance to vent some frustration and some rage. That wide receiver you were counting on to save your ass, who goes out there and catches 1 pass for 8 yards and gets targeted twice. Yeah, I'm gonna put players on full blast every week. Be lucky if Jonathan Taylor ain't in week 1. You pup list.
Oh man,
jerk.
I can't wait till we get a chance to chat by about week 2 or 3. I want you to save every piece of hate mail that you get from everybody that told you to rage drop the person who should have been rage dropped, and they come back and they have that 1 week out of 13.
Right.
They put up 7, 2 for 110 for a touchdown, and they lose their week because of you big dummy idiot Gary Davenport doesn't know anything.
You tell me to drop Sterling Shepard. He caught 6 passes for 75 yards and a score. And then the next week his leg falls off.
Exactly.
If I saved every piece of hate mail I got, there would be nothing in my basement but just printouts of hate mail.
Sounds like we have something to plan on, and you can bring it with you. That's what your outfit next year should be for the expo, is just
paper mache.
Believe it or not, I am already working on next year's outfit.
I want it to be the player haters ball where we can all be the player haters.
Yeah, with the chalices.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a thing. Kevin Tompkins and I have discussed this, that we may just go ahead and purchase it ourselves for the winner of each King's Classic, the highest point scored, not the winner overall, but the highest point scored gets the King's Chalice. And then after the King's Classic drafts, we all got to go back to the hotel bar and drink out of our chalice. I say we, like I'm going to be in there, but you never know. And it's cheap. We can find them. I think it'd be something fun.
Sounds like a plan to me, man.
Well, Gary, thank you so much for your time, man. You know what? We love you. You're part of the family, and we'll hopefully we'll see you soon, buddy.
Oh, I love you guys. Take care.
All right, buddy. Bye.
See you, Gary.
Jorge. Wow.
We got a couple questions here.
Absolutely.
JJ,
Let's start with.
You good? Do you want to take it? You want to take blah 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 blah?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
Because with Zadarius Smith, I don't know, JJ, if you heard earlier, he's one of my guys. He's one of Gary's guys as well. And that switch to Cleveland, I think, is just going to open up an even more attainable ceiling as well as floor for him this year, because he's going to this Jim Schwartz defense, which is historically known for kind of that wide nine. They've already mentioned that he's going to move inside on third downs, and they're going to incorporate him into that NASCAR packages. He's got the size, speed, ability to beat inside linemen as well. And if you look back since 2015, he's one of only 10 players in the NFL to have multiple seasons, 3+, if you will, of more than 10 sacks and more than 20 quarterback hits. You combine that with his tackle floor that seems to be always consistent, and you just have someone who I think is underrated. I mean, he's the defensive line 17, I think, ECR rankings, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like he's DL 18. I apologize. Yeah. So 18, not too far buried, but yeah, we hovered putting him at our defensive line 1 conversation when we did our first 12, right, Jorge?
Yeah. I mean, I think right now he's 14 for both of us. So, no, and here's the thing that makes, so let's give you a little history lesson on the Cleveland Browns defensive line. For a long time, you had like guys in the middle, no disrespect. And then you had Myles Garrett, who was the edge rushing, pass rushing guy who you wanted to get your sacks. And then you had for the long time Jadeveon Clowney, who was more of a run stopper. Now you get Zadarius Smith and you got Myles Garrett, both elite pass rushers coming at you from both sides. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, how is it going to be hot and cold? Because one week the offensive line is going to be blocking one player and then the other person is going to have success, and then vice versa. You would normally have that be the case if they didn't also go out and get Dalvin Tomlinson, who's basically a space sucker in the middle of that defensive line. You know, he played for the Giants and he went to the Vikings, and I believe he was with the Chargers maybe last year. Don't quote me on that last one.
I think it was straight from Minnesota over there.
Minnesota to Cleveland. Okay.
Yeah.
So this guy just occupies space. So what does that mean? That means that these edge rushers now, Smith and Myles Garrett, they're going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities with their blockers. And what makes these guys really elite is what we call win rate. And it's a metric that we follow and we track for all these players along the defensive line. They have really high win rates, so they can beat their one-on-one blocks if given that opportunity. And they'll get that opportunity because of players on the inside like a Dalvin Tomlinson for the Cleveland Browns defensive line. So, yeah, I think we're both – I think that's one rationale that at least I'm high on him for. Nate, what about you?
Just what I just said prior to you, all those things all build into that. And I like the short system, lots of stunts, and a stunt is when the outside edge rusher comes into the middle and the middle blocks out. Sometimes it's a multiple faceted look. And I think that it opens up opportunity for two guys to be further out, let the speed beat the tackles, and Zadarius Smith's up there. And to follow up, one more question they had is thoughts on Isaiah Simmons as a linebacker, New York Giants. And that's funny you mention that, because that's actually one of the people that I have as my guy this year. And it's not one that I went into too much detail. It's one that I'm just higher on than consensus, is because I think in this Wink Martindale defense, and Wink Martindale is defensive coordinator, historically is known to have a lot of different blitz packages. And Isaiah Simmons as a linebacker is going to line up in multiple different positions, which is going to give him an opportunity to, number one, be around the ball. And two, if your league scoring sets us up and he's a defensive back eligible player still, and he's not moved to linebacker, it's a quote unquote cheat code because most defensive backs don't have the opportunity to be around the ball as much as Isaiah Simmons will be. So I am higher on Isaiah Simmons. I recently just moved him up into the back end of my defensive back one conversations. You can find those over at Fantasy and Frames. Jorge, anything different on Isaiah Simmons?
There was talk that I want to say earlier this week that there was talk, and I'm talking about people that I saw on Twitter that the name is escaping me now, so I apologize. But that he would play more of a linebacker type role. I've also seen reports that he would play a safety role where they'd have a 3 safety rotation where he'd be the odd man out, so to speak, playing closer to the box, which is great for run support. He's definitely a wild card and going, some way. Here's the thing. For people like us who do rankings, it's very tricky knowing where to adjust him in the rankings because, it could be one week where they use him as a cornerback, slot cornerback, or a safety or a linebacker. And that's kind of what we all wanted Isaiah Simmons to be from a real NFL perspective coming out of Clemson, going to Arizona. He was drafted because, well, we don't actually know what the Cardinals were thinking when they drafted him. They should have been thinking, hey, this player is a utility player. He's a Swiss Army knife. Let him do everything. And then for fantasy purposes, it's like, yes, I don't care how you do it. Get all the fantasy points you can get me, And I think now going to New York, now you're going to see that opportunity. You saw him coming off the edge, going after Aaron Rodgers in that preseason game last weekend. So I think Wink is going to deploy him in a multitude of ways. So as an IDP manager, okay, I would definitely pick him up. I would definitely, again, for example, Sleeper, like Nate was alluding to, Sleeper has him as linebacker and defensive back eligible. So if you could slide that production into a defensive back spot, which is hard to fill, and find consistent production, that cheap.
And that's the question. As said, he's listed on your defensive back section, which is true because that's where in a lot of leagues still eligible. And I have him as a defensive back 13 in that. Where would I put him at a linebacker spot? I haven't adjusted it to include Isaiah Simmons linebacker, and I'm looking at it right now. And I would most likely have him as probably an LB 40, 41, somewhere around there. I'm thinking I'm going to go in and look at some of my projections and go from there. But yeah, like on MFL, he's a linebacker only. That's the true position designation. If you have him as a defensive back, as I did, and it was changed, it really hurts because I don't like the linebacker designation. And all of a sudden he went from my DB3, which was great because I thought I had a stacked defensive backfield. And now I have just an extra linebacker that I won't play most likely. All so right. It sucks for that, but maybe we're wrong. Maybe we'll see. He's hyper athletic, was drafted to be able to play linebacker, defensive back for a reason. Jorge, give me one more of your my guys this year. Who's a fun one?
Christian Harris, linebacker for the Houston Texans. Gary was talking about Denzel Perryman rising from the ashes, aka the Undertaker of linebackers. Christian Harris, second-year player. I believe from Alabama.
Yes.
Samsonite.
Samsonite.
Swanson, Samsonite. That was way off. Except I got this one right. Look, he's been getting a lot of praise from head coach D'Amico Ryans, who last I checked may know something about football and football players and linebackers. He's been getting a lot of good publicity in training camp. He looks to be every down guy. I mean, look, last year he was a rookie, had some issues, missed tackle rate was high. Obviously, you don't want that. But once he got thrown into a starting role, he didn't come off the field. The Texans don't look to be, a really good team this year. And it's one of those situations where it's opportunity. And if he's going to be on the field all three downs and helping in run support, which I believe he will be one of the two linebackers that run support. You look at some of the depth charts out here. It has Perryman as middle and Christian Harris as weak side. But when you look at the snaps from the preseason, it was actually Perryman who was playing more in coverage than it was Christian Harris. So I anticipate Christian Harris playing closer to the line of scrimmage. So yeah, I'm really excited for his second year jump this year, and the volume should be there.
Yes, and as Sean pointed out, Sean, how you doing, man? I'm sorry I saw your message from earlier and I didn't put it up there. Let's start there. And his is John Johnson the third. John Johnson, I tell you, man, what a tugging on my heartstring type my guy, because he went from somebody that I was in agreement 2 years ago as a my guy, or 3 years ago maybe it was, and now he quickly had let me down and disappointed. And maybe there's a good return this year. It wouldn't shock me at all, considering where's he at on this defensive back rankings right now? I want to say he was around like 45 or 50. He was down pretty far initially, and then it started to move his way back up. But John Johnson being his guy, he also pointed out that D'Amico Ryans is also from Alabama, which is correct. And so is Henry To'oTo'o.
Yep.
Another Alabama product, as well as Will Anderson, another Alabama product, as well as, it's
they're rivaling the Washington Commanders for the number of Alabama players they have on their team. That's
it's not a bad team for sure. So great to see you, Sean, as always. And I wanted to give a little special shout out also Melissa Harris. Melissa's in an IDP league with me. Melissa had asked for some information as far as wanting to get more involved in IDP, and it's been great to see the growth, and I'm really excited to have her join as part of the YouTube group that chimes in. And she said specifically that she is very grateful that she has a YouTube IDP show now that she can follow along and win her league this year. So
damn right.
Unless she's playing against me, and then you stuck, Melissa. And none of this is valid. This is all bullcrap that I'm talking. If you're worried about Landry, do you have same concerns with Gary from injury perspective? Yes, I
don't.
I think that's I think they were saying from a dynasty perspective as far as ranking, if you had to eliminate someone. I agree with you, Jorge. I don't have any concerns with Harold Landry, to be honest, this year. Where do you have Landry at?
Let me pull it up right now. So the reason why I don't have concerns for either of these players is because I'm not drafting them as my, defensive lineman 1 or 2, because I can get them later on in my draft because other people are going to have the same concerns, and I can get them as my defensive lineman 3, in which case my investment in them is not going to be as high. Sorry, scrolling. So needless to say, I'm scrolling a lot. I have him as my defensive end 31.
Okay. I'm at 27, so I'm a little higher, not by much though. And I think there's a case that he could move up even further, personally.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see him bumping up the rankings if he stays healthy. I mean, I think a lot through training camp he didn't really participate. He was still doing his activities with the trainer. Rashawn Gary, I'm actually more excited for it because we've been seeing him take reps in practice. There's talk of him being on a quote-unquote pitch count, which I hate that expression because that has nothing to do with football, but whatever. I guess snap count would be the better way to put it, right? He was going to be on a snap count week 1. But the fact that he's participating in practice, he's participating in drills. I'm not concerned from fantasy standpoint because, like I said, you probably can get them at a value.
Yeah. One other question here real quick is thoughts on Nolan Smith. Is he worth a stash? And I mean, a stash of, I think, that pedigree, of course, depending on how deep your bench is, because that's the one thing we've seen with the Eagles so far is they go deep. There's no doubt that right now with Hassan Reddick on strong side, Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham, one of these things, not like the other, is the age of Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. So I think there's a case to be made that Nolan Smith could find his way into that rotation sooner rather than later. I just think you'd be disappointed this year on expectations with such a limited or unknown playing time. Any different opinion on Nolan Smith for you, Jorge?
I guess it depends. Like if it's redraft, I'm not stashing him. For Dynasty, I am. My only concern is one of the things you mentioned that they roll deep, on the defensive side of the ball, and that's kind of what made it early on in the season difficult to predict and project who's going to be the one that you want to start this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after a certain point in the season, it became painfully obvious that not Zadarius Smith, but Hassan Reddick is the guy that you want to be starting week in and week out at defensive lineman. The Brandon Graham issue, though, the fact that he wants to trade, that's interesting to me. So if he does get traded and they throw in Nolan Smith at defensive lineman, I don't know. That could be something. Reason why you want to stash him for Dynasty, but for redraft this year, depending on how big your bench is, I don't know. I'm not too keen on that move.
Yeah, one of my final. I have one more, at least my guy that I want to mention is one that I probably second most heavily involved. I'll just do back to back, two guys real quick, rattle them off. Number one at linebacker is Damone Clark. Damone Clark is currently the LB 60. He's my LB 37. I'm much higher than consensus. And that's because I think that I trust when Mike McCarthy says he has limited time to watch the defense, but yet he stands out to him. He draws his attention away and he notices him on the field that he's made that quote unquote jump. I trust that. I also don't trust LVE to be, anything that's going to take a ton of tackles away. And the depth chart wise, I know one of your guys was DeMarvion Overshown, and him being on the IL now just opens up more playing time for Damone Clark. He looks and feels healthy for the first time since really not, I can't say the first time. He's shown no significant concerns with his neck injury that he had. He's flying around sideline to sideline, making many, tons of plays in 10 games last year. That really limited snaps here and there, but 47 tackles. It was really his turnover ability. I mean, he had 2 forced fumbles during the regular season. He had that fumble recovery against the 49ers in the playoffs. He, in limited snaps this preseason without LVE and Malik Hooker, he wore the green dot. So, they do trust him to be there. And those final 7 games last year, that 13% tackle rate was just an indicator that I think that's his floor. So I'm more than happy to invest in Damone Clark. The neck injury had us concerned, but at the end of the day, I'm all in, especially considering where he's going. So hopefully we'll have some others to follow along. And then Bob, sorry, Miss Bob, he's on the radio. Bob, you can't be sorry.
Seriously, Bob, you should have dropped your Sirius XM show and just watched it. No, come on, man. Thank you first of all. Thank you, Bob Harris, for turning in to the show. We hope you do go back and look at the replay for this one.
And I would like to know who your my guy is, and Mike's as well. I know that you guys both big IDP fans, and we appreciate having your support as always. Sean's guy at linebacker is Robert Spillane. We talked earlier about him wearing the green dot there in Vegas. I think there's a good upside for him to be a sneaky play. And then last but not least, at defensive back, my guy, Kyle Hamilton. I've talked about him probably on every show I've been on. It's going to burn me in the end if he doesn't produce, but he's my defensive back 3 in the rankings. He's defensive back 7 overall, so it's not a huge jump, but I think it's weird. I get a lot of not pushback necessarily, but people that are like, yeah, he's okay, but he's a 7. So consensusly, everybody's kind of in the same agreement that he has that DB1 floor. Is he the DB1 overall upside? That's to be determined yet. But I think that right now with this Mike McDonald defense that he's playing in, he's playing that underneath robber kind of rat role. That fits into his skill set. If you look at from week 14 on last year through the wild card game, he was 3rd amongst defensive back in pressures, 13th in solo tackles, while he was 115th in snaps. No more Chuck Clark. He can win on. We said that win rate earlier. See how good I said it there? Win rate. Nice and easy.
That was good. That was good.
Thank
First
you very much.
Yeah.
Among safeties, it's a 20%, which is the first. So he is an effective pass rusher when needed. And when he's set back in as far as a tackler goes, he's a solid tackler. He was 10% solo run tackle rate last year. So I love Kyle Hamilton and Damone Clark. Those are my guys. Jorge, take us home with your final my guy.
So my guys, Kazir White, linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals, they're just going to be bad. Like, I hate to break it to you, folks. The Cardinals are just going to be really bad this year. One of the things that people were concerned about when the Cardinals signed him was like, well, you still got Zaven Collins at linebacker, inside linebacker. You still got Isaiah Simmons, being a tweener between defensive back and linebacker. Okay, well, now Zaven Collins is now the edge rusher, the starting edge rusher there, right. And Isaiah Simmons is not even on the team anymore. Kaiser White, he's had some really good years, whether he's been a lot of good years in for the Chargers, goes to Philadelphia. Of course, there's always the, last year was a very, like I said earlier, who are you going to start for Philly? But he's going to get this opportunity this year. He is going to be the every down linebacker. And most importantly, he is going to be on the field a lot. And so you want that opportunity for your inside run stopping linebacker. So give me all the Kaiser White you can get as my dog is taking a tissue out of the trash can and tearing it up on the floor in front of me like she's supposed to. Good job, Hannah.
If that doesn't encapsulate the my guy situation, my guys for IDP, nothing does. I wish I had a decent analogy to a dog grabbing toilet paper out of the trash, but I don't. And so I will just leave it at that and let everybody know that we've made it. We are there, and we have gotten to football within 6 days. So if you've been along for the ride so far, as bumpy as it may be through the off season with IDP, just know that we got you. We'll hold our hand through the season. You'll follow all of our work at Fantasy and Frames, and there's a lot to be learned. And if you have any questions, suggestions, please, number one, follow us over at Fantasy and Frames. Give me or Jorge a DM. Our messages are always open. And then obviously subscribe and like and hit that little bell there for the YouTube page so you know when we're coming on and we can answer any questions that you may have. So, JJ, thank you for joining the chat. Bob, Sean, Melissa. I think Carrie was listening earlier, but she jumps in. Here's 2 seconds and then jumps out. But I don't blame her.
All right, take it easy, everybody. Good luck in your drafts this weekend. Do have a comment right here. Just a suggestion on our site: combined rankings, offensive, defensive players. As soon as we get off air, I will put that together, and hopefully that'll make it easy for you all this draft weekend. Final push. We got a few more days left, and then week 1 kicks off next Thursday. So just good luck with your drafts, everybody, and we will see you soon.
See you then.